I don't actually see many other industries that bring together the next generation of young professionals so much like the YGN for the nuclear industry in Europe.
The gravity of the time is such that every new avenue of peace, no matter how dimly discernible, should be explored. Never before in history has so much hope for so many people been gathered together in a single organization. You will provide a great share of the wisdom, of the courage, and the faith which can bring to this world lasting peace for all nations and happiness and well-being for all men.
Nathan Paterson, so nice to have you on our show of Titans on Nuclear.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here, remotely.
Yeah, you work for Foratom now, but I noticed that you started from studying physics.
That's
how come you chose? Yeah, how come you chose nuclear as your career, not some lasers, particle physics, or any very popular physics field?
Yeah, well, I done a Master of Science in Physics, and it covered many areas. It did actually cover a lot in photonics. I've done a lot in kind of laser physics and science, but one of the areas I was involved in, material science, a lot, and some on the kind of nuclear fission and fusion side as well. So I got an appreciation from that. I had one of the lecturers actually was involved in the JET program for fusion in the UK. So I learned about it via that way. But it wasn't my number one thing when I left university that says I want to join the nuclear industry. So I gravitated towards it for other reasons.
So your first job was actually nuclear submarines, right? How is the program? Is this program still working? Would you recommend it to other people, to other graduates?
Yeah, well, that's what pulled me towards the nuclear industry, so to speak. It was a nuclear engineers graduate program, which focused on areas about system engineering, safety engineering, covering a wide spectrum, but within the aspect of the construction and manufacture of the nuclear submarines, which is a pretty cool project to be involved in as a young engineer. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it to people. It was a 2-year program. I went around different departments, get involved in different projects, and it's a really good way to get sight of things that you might not be involved in throughout your career, but it's great to start off your career by testing out different departments and see which area of the nuclear industry you like. Is it design? Is it verification, operations management? Yeah, so it's great for that.
Okay, what kind of reactors were there? What's the type of reactor?
Well, that's something I'm not really able to talk about in detail, actually, to be honest.
Oh, all right.
So
okay.
It's one of those things
no
where
worries.
if you're involved in that program, you don't really go into detail about the technology aspect itself.
Okay. Okay, so but after this, you moved to the real nuclear industry, the civil nuclear industry, right? Rolls-Royce?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I moved to Rolls-Royce, but I was still very much involved in the naval propulsion program. Rolls-Royce are the main designer of the nuclear reactor, and I was involved in different areas of nuclear safety for internal and external hazard assessment and identification, involved in areas for updating safety casework. And then I got involved in quite a package of work, which is in verification and validation for a new iteration of one of the nuclear reactors. So that was a fantastic program to be involved in. One that happens not very often, every few decades. So it was great to be involved in that.
Right.
Yeah, and then after that,
What is it actually?
I'm sorry.
What is it actually? Verification and validation.
Yeah, so involved in taking design requirements and verifying them through different means, be it the strategy for doing it from analytical testing, computer modeling, then validating those models with physical testing, so thermohydraulics rigs testing. So all of this was a fantastic thing to be involved in. Really seeing how the evolution of different systems and components can happen from design through to proving it in a manufactured situation. So I was quite lucky to be involved in that. But then after that is actually when I went to get involved in the civil nuclear industry with Rolls-Royce. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you were working for business development of Rolls-Royce. What kind of experience is that? What are the areas of working of Rolls-Royce, and how does it expand globally?
Okay, well, it was a great experience to be involved in business development there. I covered mainly certain customers and certain product themes, so helping develop the marketing and the product development for those areas in line with what customers' needs would be. So for example, one of the areas would be emergency diesel generators. So that's a product line that Rolls-Royce offers, and various solutions in line with what the customer's needs are. So it was quite interesting because I got to go and speak to different customers or potential customers in places like Finland and Russia, and really kind of get to understand what type of solution that they were looking for and discuss the practicalities of how to make that happen, discussing with the teams back in the UK and other areas in France and in Germany, which are also part of Rolls-Royce, and how that can get brought together for a solution for the customer. So it was really interesting. Yeah.
Okay. Right now you are engaged in Foratom. What drew you to an association? You switched from the industry to a little bit different form of work. How are you drawn to this area?
Okay, yeah. I came from an engineering background, moved a bit more into business development, which is trying to understand the needs, sell a product, understand where it fits in. And I actually saw quite a natural progression to where Foratom is. So Foratom is understanding the needs about how the nuclear industry can fit in the European context at the EU level, discussing how to make that a reality as well, understanding where different policy or legislation could be optimised, so to speak, for better conditions for the nuclear industry. So I actually seen quite a bit of progression there and involvement across both ways. And I got the opportunity now at Foratom to be responsible for the themes for supply chain enablement. So very much still staying close to the industry, and also the research and innovation side as well. So involved with the working groups from that side.
That's great. Actually, I think that supply chain is this one part of nuclear that can profit tremendously, so much from having such an association and having a platform to communicate between the businesses. What are your tasks there, and how do you work with the companies to develop this communication?
Yeah, sure. So some of the main areas are trying to understand how the supply chain can be optimized to fit in with the needs of the nuclear industry, the licensees as well. We have various working groups at Foratom, and one of them is on supply chain optimization. And within that working group, we have various industry experts, and we have different workshops where we bring them together and discuss what is going on nationally in those countries, where other countries can learn from that as well. Where are the issues that we should try and collaborate on together? And one of those areas which I've been involved in quite extensively over the past few months, really, is in collaboration with the working group. We've been writing a report, which is on an analysis of the European nuclear supply chain and how it could potentially be optimised to be more broad and widened, so we can access much more suppliers, essentially, to be in line with the different needs of the nuclear industry for long-term operation. There's going to be a lot of need for plant lifetime extension programs and modifications, which in turn means the need for different suppliers. And the European nuclear industry, on average, is about 35 years old per plant, on average. So there is going to be a cycle of a lot of need for modernisation and new suppliers, but unfortunately sometimes there's issues in accessing the right supply chain, because in some areas the supply chain is shrinking for certain components in certain areas. So one of the areas, it's if you look at, for example, the ASME N stamp, so suppliers that have got ASME certification, actually since about 2013, that's been decreasing about 5% per annum since then. So this is companies that are certified nuclear grade suppliers. So there's not one specific component or area, but it's mainly suppliers that you would expect to have a nuclear certification. But one of the things that we are looking at is, in some areas, we don't always need to go to the nuclear grade components. There is opportunities for accessing supply chain from other industries, high quality industrial grade items from other industries, be it petrochemical industry, aeronautics, other industrial sectors, and understand how can some of these components get brought in for maybe some of the more lower safety class applications in the nuclear industry. So that's actually one of the areas that I've been involved in with the working group, and I've written a report that's going to get published very soon, which is essentially trying to understand, can we leverage this good experience about using non-nuclear grade items from other industries, but bringing them into the nuclear industry in the lower safety classes in certain areas, as has been done in some countries already. America does this a lot. They've got a program via commercial grade dedication, is normally what they call it, but it's not used so much extensively throughout Europe. So we're trying to look at areas to see.
It's not like business as usual yet. So you are starting this inclusivity and maybe extending the access to nuclear industry.
Yeah, we want to widen it. We don't want to make it difficult for suppliers to access the nuclear industry. That's the problem. And some countries, due to different national legislation and regulations, it's quite tricky for new entrants and new suppliers. We would love to promote a much more harmonised supply chain and procurement aspect throughout Europe.
One of these problems could be maybe codification, the fact that there are many different codes that are the framework to design the components, and each country has some choice of the code.
Yeah.
So if you are a supplier, either you are working in this one specific country once you get the certification, or you need to adjust to many different codes. This harmonization, I think, is super important right now in 21st century.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. So this is exactly the type of thing that we are trying to open the door and discuss much more. So we're trying to discuss it in collaboration with the likes of WENRA, which is one of the groups of nuclear regulators across Europe. And to try and do it in collaboration with them. So industry and regulators are the one who would kind of sign off on some of these new guidelines and new approaches, because it has to be a joint dialogue and a joint movement together, or it's going to be quite difficult when we need to do some of these plant lifetime extension programs and try and access certain suppliers when the options might not be there. So we need to act quite soon, yeah.
And then the other sector that you are involved in is as you mentioned, research and innovation. What are you doing there in this part of association?
Yeah. Okay. So again, there's another working group which has experts from across Europe, and I'm involved with that working group, where we try and analyse research and innovation programs at EU level, and think how can industry be more involved in that? How can industry give its opinion on the development of some of these programs? And I'm talking a lot about the next Foratom research and development funded program. So at the EU level, that's the one for nuclear. But also there's a much more wider research and innovation program at EU level, which is going to be Horizon Europe as well. And so we, analyse and look at what is going to be the strategy for delivering these, and give our opinion on where we think certain improvements could happen, how there could be better synergies between the nuclear part for research and development and non-nuclear areas, because there are a lot of synergies, be it in material science, be it in aspects of digitisation or advanced manufacturing areas. So we don't really want the nuclear industry to be sitting on its own table all the time when it comes to research development. It should be involved in the much more broader conversation for some of these enabling R&D areas. So that's one of the kind of key areas we try and promote. That's one area. There's quite a few.
Yeah, I'm curious because there is a problem with all this innovation sector, that sometimes the companies that try to innovate, the companies in the form of startup, they try to make an innovation, but sometimes it's not really hitting the market. There is no market. It's a little bit slippery. Then they lose some money and stop their activity after a year or two.
Yeah.
What do you think? What are the areas of nuclear that are really crucial for innovating right now? What should we start from, and where, if I want to open a startup, what do I focus on? What do I develop?
Okay, it's a good question, and I might not have all the answers, but I'll give you my opinion. So it depends on how you see. Depends on how you see. Where does the boundary lie for research and innovation that could improve the nuclear industry? Okay, so would you want to do a startup for a new SMR, for a microreactor? Yes, you can do that, yes, and we can talk about the economics and the benefits of that. But also, do you want to look at a startup that is bringing in more digitization for the existing nuclear fleet? Trying to understand how can we have more health monitoring of components, so we can analyse the data, so we can, when we have our inspection and maintenance periods, to reduce the timescale for that. That's a key area that we need to get involved in for the nuclear industry right now. But we can't forget about the exciting stuff as well, which is obviously like with the new reactors and the kind of sexy areas like SMRs. But there's a lot that can happen with the existing fleet right now. And that's me not even talking about new components and new systems as well. There's a lot of applications, be it 3D printing, additive manufacturing, that we have seen a few examples in the nuclear industry, but not so many. So that's a great field. But again, there's qualification barriers that we need to get around there as well. Not every country sees it the same. If you want to use an additive manufactured part for a nuclear safety function. So,
Wow, it's a lot.
I don't think I gave you all the answers, but
I can't decide which company to open right now.
There's too many stuff. Yeah, it's actually a great time to be coming into the nuclear industry with new, fresh ideas. It really is. Yeah.
It's actually funny because sometimes when I come out of my nuclear bubble, I talk to some friends from studies that did not end up in nuclear. They are somewhere else in the energy.
Mm-hmm.
You can have this feeling that, according to some people, nuclear is like technology of the 20th century.
Mm.
That because it's so heavily regulated, it's hard to innovate. It's hard to push this development forward.
Yeah.
But being inside of this bubble, you know that, oh my God, you think that we stopped in 20th century, that nuclear cannot keep up, but the fact is that you cannot keep up with nuclear. You don't see all these wonderful opportunities that nuclear is bringing.
Yeah.
And it's not only the business opportunities, but also what kind of services can nuclear bring.
Yeah.
And how much up to date are the characteristics of this solution. Like flexibility, like hydrogen production and so on.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. Other applications outside of electricity production, that's a lot where the future's going as well. Hydrogen production, flexibility with intermittent renewables, with understanding when we could be providing district heating, process heating for other industrial applications. All of this is not, I don't want to say it's not being progressed enough, because there is a lot of actual experience in district heating in some of these areas in Europe, but there's a lot of opportunities for a new mindset to come and start approaching some of these areas and bridging the gap with some of the other energy sectors, as you mentioned, because a lot of these other energy sectors are grabbing hold of a lot of these sector coupling aspects and really looking at how to get involved with other sectors at the same time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're totally right. But Foratom is a European association, so it mostly works with the more developed countries, right? And these countries are bound by European Union and European policies. Some of them are also concerning climate change.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Europe and European Union is doing fine with the inclusion of nuclear in this low carbon strategy of the future?
Well, the answer to be blunt is no. There's much more opportunities for nuclear to be involved at the EU level. There is some good statements that gets written on paper at the EU level, but actually pulling that forward and bringing it into the right programs and the right initiatives, there's a lot more improvement that could happen there. I mean, we're on the cusp of the European Green Deal. There's going to be fantastic opportunities for showing how nuclear can play such an important role in the 2050 strategy for decarbonisation of the whole continent. We're also coming off the back of COVID-19. I'm still in the house right now, so I'm still very much involved in the COVID-19 world, but we are starting to talk much more about the recovery package as well, investing in people and growth and jobs in the right sectors. Nuclear can play a significant role here, the existing fleet and also new technologies.
Mm-hmm. What are some of you mentioned European Green Deal. what are the other frameworks that European Union is working on and that nuclear should be included in?
Well, some of the other important things that are actually a little bit connected to the European Green Deal as well, because that's kind of going to overarch a lot of areas. One of the areas is the so-called taxonomy regulation, sustainable finance. There's been a lot of work going on in the European Union right now regarding analysis of what could be classified as a sustainable investment. And at the moment, it is not decided if nuclear will be in or out of that agreement. So that's an important thing that not only Foratom, but many nuclear associations, stakeholders, eco-modernists all across Europe are all saying we need to wake up now and make sure that nuclear is involved here, because it would be like cutting your nose off to spite your face, as we would say back in Scotland sometimes, to exclude nuclear from this. It makes no sense. It makes no logical sense.
Because right now nuclear is put in line with natural gas. It's not in, it's not out, as well as natural gas is not in, not out. How come we came to this place that we cannot be recognized as low carbon energy that we are?
Yeah. Maybe to put it blunt or a bit controversial, it's actually quite strong lobbyists against nuclear, and different member states and the European Union that have turned their back on nuclear, or were never that very much into it, so to speak, for a number of years. So there's strong lobbying against having nuclear by certain countries like Germany, Austria, Luxembourg. But at the same time, there is other lobbying going on for the gas industry and its connections with renewables as well, and other other aspects there, and it makes it quite a troublesome time, I think, actually, to get everyone on the same piece of paper to really get behind the right things to happen. So I'm not criticising anyone for what they're doing or their decisions, but I do think it's time now to wake up and to get the right people assessing in a level playing field approach. So having experts who know about the nuclear industry providing comment on whether its life cycle is sustainable or not. And I'm quite confident they'll come to the right conclusion, but they need to be given that opportunity to do that. And then hopefully people will have sense and give that firm direction that the industry needs, that nuclear is a sustainable investment, and that'll help open the doors for certain financing avenues and investors' confidence. So it is an important area that is going to change probably how the next 5 and 10 years of the nuclear industry in Europe progress.
Do you think that the problem of taxonomy is focused only on the technical assessment, as it's officially being said, or it's more deep problem? It's a problem of general public, general acceptance. Is Foratom doing some work with general public in this direction?
Well, actually, I don't think the problem is mainly with the public, because in the assessment of the taxonomy, there have been various technical expert groups have been set up to look at different aspects of it. One area was do no significant harm. That seems to be the main one that they're trying to use to push nuclear out. But this really is been the view of people that are not general public. They're meant to be experts, but not in the nuclear field, more in finance areas. So Foratom has been involved in a few activities to try and help the people involved in that process get access to information if they want to actually look at this in a more reasonable way. But also at the same time, there's been people against the nuclear industry trying to put forward different information that is not overly factual, to put it a certain way, and it is trying to make the direction of that group give an opinion that nuclear is too complicated right now to include in the list. But at the moment, there is a call for the setting up of a new group of nuclear experts to properly assess this. So it wouldn't really be the general public; it would more be a proper industrial and academic group to look at this. But Foratom very much supports engagement with the public, but more so trying to help support the things that are going on with the different European nuclear societies, who are also very much involved with the outreach area. Our main focus is mainly the EU policy side.
Yet another society that figures in your history, no? The nuclear societies is some part of your experience. You were even the chair of European Nuclear Society, Young Generation.
I was.
Do you have any cool memories from that from the time?
I have many good memories.
I mean,
some
for sure,
that I can tell you about. Some that I'll hold off until we get a drink. No, it was a fantastic time. I've been involved in the YGN community when I was in the UK, where I became the UK rep on the ENS YGN and get involved in various aspects about promoting nuclear industry, doing outreach work, putting on conferences and events, speaking at other industry events on behalf of the voice of the young people. It's the YGN community. It really is one of the areas that I think the nuclear industry has got the gold standard in. I don't actually see many other industries that bring together the next generation of young.
Some of the advantages. Let's name some of the advantages of having a society in the industry, a nuclear society.
Yeah, I mean, well, it bridges the gap. It makes it a much more human aspect about not having just, as some people believe, older gentlemen in their 50s with grey hair and different things that are involved in the industry. Much more diverse group, people with a lot of energy, people that want to go out and talk about not just the nuclear industry technology, but how it fits in the wider context. Get involved in the Nuclear for Climate initiative, going to the climate change conferences. It creates the platform to bring all these things together, and it makes you open your eyes and see what's going on in different countries as well. So you can really leverage and build on some great initiatives or experiences going on in country A and then bring it to country B. Because there's actually much more activity at YGN level across Europe probably than there is nuclear power across Europe. So some of these YGN communities are involved, are not people from just the nuclear power station, but from the research institutes, the ones who actually want to see nuclear happen in those countries as well. So some really good memories involved in that. Yeah.
That's cool. Do you think that having a nuclear society in a country, can it help with preventing the rotation of employees? There is this problem in nuclear that people start their career in nuclear and later then they switch to IT, to some other work, the jobs that are not really related to their initial career. Such a nuclear society can build this identity in people and prevent them from leaving.
Yeah. No, I think you're very right there. Being involved in these types of YGN communities, I think it makes you gravitate towards seeing the nuclear industry as much more as even a vocation rather than a career sometimes. I mean, you get much more of a connection and emotive connection really to the technology, to the benefits that it could really bring in other areas, and the excitement of bringing some of these things forward. And that's what the YGN community does. It lets you see this going on in different countries, because maybe it can get a bit frustrating for some people if they are just involved in the one company setting, and maybe they don't really understand the opportunities going on with the nuclear industry throughout Europe and internationally as well, don't forget. So that's one of the key things that I like to think the YGN community brings. And it lets you go and talk to some other the senior people and say to them, okay, it's great getting your views, but these are our views as well from the YGN community. So it becomes much more of a dialogue about helping giving your opinion on where you think the strategy should go for the European nuclear industry, so to speak. And the YGN platform presents that opportunity. A lot of people in the YGN get to talk at different national and European events, and I really think that the senior people in the nuclear industry appreciate hearing the honest views of the people from the YGN. So, yeah, very good memories.
Cool. Also, young people are the greatest advocates for nuclear energy.
Exactly.
As you can observe, sometimes you have this professor coming, saying, giving some lecture with heavy vocabulary that nobody understands and nobody wants to understand.
Yeah.
In comparison to some fresh graduate or young career professional who comes and is just so inspired, so happy to represent this industry.
Yeah.
You can really get much easier to general public.
Yeah.
When you are in YGN and when you are in this crucial young age of under 35, that is the age limit for YGN, right?
Yeah. Which I am not anymore. So I'm past past year. But yeah, you hit it nail on the head. It makes it much more human. I know there's been some good YGN activities that I helped to try and promote, where the YGN community would go out into different areas, might be at a pub, and even talk to the public there, so they know that it's not just someone in a suit who's from the nuclear industry, to understand the public's concern. Talk about some of the maybe controversial things that maybe happened in a certain TV show on HBO not that long ago.
Not mentioning the title because nobody knows it. Yeah, totally. Nathan, are you excited about the future, and how should nuclear industry look in the future for you to be satisfied?
Well, I am very excited. I am. There's great opportunities for the nuclear industry from new technology side. So one of the main things that I really think that the next 20, 30 years will be important is non-electric applications of nuclear energy. So there's going to be new reactor designs coming through. It's going to be SMRs, micro reactors. We're moving forward for advanced nuclear reactors that are going to be providing heat at a much higher level than existing PWRs right now. That's going to open the door for applications, we mentioned it before, like hydrogen production. But not only that, the process heat arguably actually sometimes could be more economical use for other applications as well, in district heating. So I can see a big push and movement towards all of this, and in doing so, I think it's going to make nuclear much more accessible and understandable to a lot of the public as well, and other industries and other sectors. And we're seeing that right now, actually. We're seeing a few companies that are speaking to SMRs and setting up MOUs with them and actually trying to have more of a direct link between a reactor technology that provides energy and the energy that sector might need, be it a chemical, refinery.
Even if in my country of origin, in Poland, there is this huge news that
That's the one,
certain BWR will be built at some point.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, that could be great.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and another one, Estonia as well, was looking quite serious into SMR technology as well, and but that's not only for electricity production, but thinking how else can get used, how could the heat get utilised. So I can see that as an exciting area, really, and I haven't really spoke too much about the different nuclear technologies of Generation 4, Forum and all of that. It's a great time for nuclear engineers to be getting involved in some of these projects because there is quite a lot going on. There's not only one game in town, so to speak. There's many designs, and a lot of these companies are recruiting and looking for new fresh blood and fresh ideas to get involved. Yeah.
All right. Do you want to greet your friends from Foratom, your colleagues? Do you want to say hi to your mom or something as we wrap up here?
Well, I'll say hi to everyone that knows me. I'm not so sure my mum's going to be watching this, but you never know. You never know. I tell you what, it was great. It was great talking, and I appreciate reaching out to have a chat with me in these crazy times of COVID-19, having a remote conversation. So hopefully it came across okay, the sound quality, but we'll see.
It was great talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Bye then.
And initiate at least a new approach to the many difficult problems that must be solved in both private and public conversation if the world is to shake off the inertia imposed by fear and is to make positive progress toward peace.